Okay, guys, this piece is called Maize Cobs, and it is exactly that, a corn cob. So this is Inca, and it dates from 1440 to about 1533 CE. It is made out of sheet metal with the technique called repoussé, which I'll talk about in a second, and then used with metal alloys, for the most part silver. So there's only three of these corn cobs left that survived the Spanish conquest, which if you listened to the Cusco screencast already, they had dozens and dozens in their garden in front of the main temple. So it's interesting where these are. One is currently in Berlin. There's another one in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then the third one's in Denver, Colorado, which I think those are, again, like, why aren't they in Peru? But it's an interesting that they're in those cities. These are beautifully crafted Inca sheet metal object in the shape of a partial corn stalk. It has 2 ears of corn growing. So this was originally located in the garden of Cusco. So the technique, the process of repoussé is the creation of relief designs from behind. So you begin by cutting out the shape with a thin bladed chisel, and then a pattern was scribed onto the metal, sometimes using templates, and then raised design was pressed out from the back with the metal and wooden punches onto the surface, such as like a thick leather or a sand-filled bag. And then the final design was refined and sharpened from the front with very fine tools. The incised design were also scored into metal figures, and areas of metal were sometimes cut out. Multi-piece objects sometimes had different metals, and they were combined by several techniques. Edges were overlapped and hammer welded with annealing, and then sometimes they also included the clinching of the edges of the metal and folding them over on each other. And then soldering and brazing them were accomplished with melted bits of metal alloy. They also did what's called mochi spot welding, and that was unbelievable, which had some pieces including hundreds of individual spot solderings. They also did granulation or diffusion bonding, and that was used for very fine work such as tiny beads or fine wire. So the secret to Inca's success really was that the empire managed to produce not only ample goods and foodstuffs for its armies, religious officials, and the luxurious court at Cusco, but they also had plenty for the common people. So the Inca himself granted local chieftains permission to distribute clothes and food from the state stores to needy peasants, a practice that kept their subjects content. So ancient South American peoples were able to become specialize in different types of artistic techniques, particularly the metallurgists, who manufactured cast and hammered objects of gold, silver, copper, and bronze, all of which was abundant in the Andes region. So gold or silver sheet metal was formed into crowns, ear spools, pectorals, and into luxurious cups, bowls, and jars. The Inca manufactured sheet metal llamas, and even human figurines that were used as offerings on mountaintops and other sacred locations. There are some that are preserved in museums. So let's see. There's also within the Temple of Gold, with the ornamental garden, they also had, clods of earth, the maize plants, complete with leaves and corn cobs, were fashioned from silver and gold. They also had a nearby flock of llamas. There was 20 golden llamas and their lambs that were supposed to be grazing nearby, and they were watched over by solid gold shepherds. Inca nobles strolled around on sandals with silver soles, protecting their feet from the hard streets of Cusco. So the reason why it's important is that this maize, is that it's rendered in silver by an imperial craftsman. It was considered a secular object, right? This isn't having to do with any type of religious or even ceremonial thing. It's essentially food, but it was still sacred because it was used to make, well, actually it was used to make a beer for consumption in religious festivals. So it's both secular and religious. And but again, at its most practical thing, it's a corn cob, right, made out of silver. So it really goes to show that how much the difference, that the value people put on wealth and what is considered an object that is like something you would just put in your garden versus something that is considered extremely valuable in Europe. So, I mean, it really shows how much the Andean region had in regards to the materials that the Spanish wanted. So abundant sources of gold, silver, and copper were found in modern-day Peru and Bolivia. There were pure gold and copper, and there's also ores of silver and copper. And then most of the prehistoric Andean gold was retrieved from streams by just washing the gravel in a wooden tray, and sometimes streams were diverted to expose gold-bearing gravels. Lesser amounts were excavated from one-man trenches. There were mine shafts for silver and copper ore, 1 meter or so, depending on, which is about 230 feet long. I'm sorry, 1 meter to 70 meters, which is about 230 feet long. They also had vertical shafts for only as deep as the dirt could be thrown upon the surface, and then another hole would be started nearby. And then wooden, bronze, and antler tools were used to dig into the veins of the ore where they would break it up and crush it. The excavated materials was brought out in hide sacks and fiber baskets. When the Spanish got there and chronicled and recorded what the Inca mines had, um, they said that the Incas only worked in the summer from noon to sunset, and mining, like so many other tasks, was carried out as part of the Inca labor tax. So crushed silver and copper um, was, just to judge from the accounts of Spanish conquistadors, such works represent just a tiny fraction of what the Inca gold and silver treasury did or had in the 16th century, because they describe buildings with walls sheathed in gold in Cusco, the large discs of the sun and the moon, life-size human statues, and they're all melted down by the Spanish. And among the most intriguing accounts are those that describe the Concha shrine at Cusco, where the Inca royal mummies were venerated, and in a courtyard and the adjacent garden was the planted full-scale maize stalks made of gold. But this one's silver. So also, we talked about all the other stuff before. So let's see. The plants were supposedly erected during planting and harvest festivals as part of like a ceremony. And then other Inca shrines may have contained similar ritual objects. This sheet metal maize ear this one in particular is in the collection of at the Denver Art Museum, and it's really only some of the very few surviving remnants of the Inca practice of repoussé, and how great of sheet metallurgists they were. Okay, almost done.